What is up, you wonderful people? My name is Cody Warner. A couple weeks ago, I made a video about the ability to locked on track for the x-axis only. So you have some object, maybe it's a speaker on stage, you just have a static shot, and you want the frame to follow the speaker back and forth. On stage, you want to use Final Cut to do it. You don't want to plug in. On that video, got a comment from MA7DRK, probably Mark, and he asked, could you do this for the y-axis also? And I was like, yeah, you totally can. And then I realized instead of just telling him that, I should make him a video. So MA7DRK, this is for you. The video is sponsored by Squarespace. The amazing thing, which this always happens, is as I was creating this, I ran into a similar issue that I did the last time. And this time I solved that issue. I figured it out with the help of ChatGPT. So what I'm about to tell you here, these little tweaks on settings, you can definitely apply if you're doing this on X or on Y. All right, this whole thing should just be a poem. I should rhyme this whole entire video. I'm not gonna do that. For context, this is a 4K clip, all right? And the shutter is higher than it should be. So the shutter on this is 1/250. I'm shooting at 24 frames a second, so it should be more like 1/50. So I call that the shutter is over cranked, like the shutter's higher than it should be. What that does is it just stops motion a little bit. It makes each individual frame of the video much more clear. There's not much motion blur in this clip, all right? And that's good for tracking. You need to know that it's 4K, 3840 by 2160, because those numbers will come into play in the math that we're gonna do in just a little bit when I explain why this works. So workflow, you can see I have my clip of this pickleball that I want to track up and down. I don't want the up and down movement anymore. I just want this thing to just stay like static right in the middle, top to bottom of the frame. You see I have my Final Cut set up. My viewer is actually very tiny. It's going to be helpful later if I hide the browser so that my viewer is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come up here to the right hand side and tap on that, and that's going to hide the browser. I also have Show Horizon turned on. So when I click on View, go down to Show Horizon, I have that clicked on. That's also going to be helpful later. First thing I'm gonna do is I have my clip. I'm going to add a tracker to this clip. So tap on the clip, come over here to the inspector. I have no idea why it says nothing to inspect. There we go, it popped up. Thanks, Final Cut. Come over here, scroll down to the bottom of the inspector on this clip and tap the plus next to trackers. All right, that brings up this little grid. Because my object is circular, I'm going to make this a circle. And I'm also going to zoom in just so I can like really pick that, just really get that grid on only what I want to be tracking, which in this case is this pickleball. If it was a person, you just want to choose something where there's some contrast, where like, you want the computer to be able to tell what it is that you're trying to track, right? So I've got it pretty well placed on there. Before I click on Analyze, I'm going to change this analysis method from automatic to machine learning, because that's the best way that Final Cut can track any object. So machine learning, have that right on the center there, and then you can click on either of these arrows, but that's only going to track one way or the other. If you just click on Analyze, it'll track both ways, no matter where your playhead is in the timeline. So I'm going to tap on that. We're tracking to the right, we're tracking to the left. All right, whole entire thing is tracked. So now I'm going to go to Fit, and I'm just going to scrub through this to make sure that that tracker is sticking on that ball or whatever the subject is that I want to track. All right, just make sure that it's actually has worked, that it's done its job. If not, you got to track it again. Maybe choose a portion of it that has more contrast, or make your grid a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, whatever you need to do so that your object is actually being tracked. Okay, once you have the tracker, you're going to come over here to your inspector again, go back up to the top, and this is where the first change over the last video comes in. On X, which is what we want to tell Final Cut, like, hey, don't worry about the X. I'm going to change this to negative 0.1%, all right? And you're going to see what happens. Look, it basically, you can't even see it. It's like behind the horizon line because it squished that entire frame down to, I think it's like maybe 3.8 pixels. I don't know, a very tiny sliver now is behind that horizon line. The clip's still there, but it's just very tiny. On Y, which is what we do want Final Cut to pay attention to, we're gonna change that to negative 100. All right, So now what we've done is we've squished the X into the negative. So like it did mirror, right? It's negative. And we've also now completely inverted the clip. So now what was up is now down, and what was down is now up. So this clip is upside down and very, very tiny, but also just slightly inverted on the X, okay? Come back down to your timeline. I'm gonna tap on A just to make sure that I have the arrow selected. And you can actually see, if I scrub through this, what is happening. Like, the ball's still being tracked, but it looks like it's just only moving up and down in the viewer. And that's exactly what we want. That's the motion that we want to cancel out. We want that ball to just stay right on that horizon line, right? I'm going to press and hold Option and slide that clip right up to the top. So now I have a duplicate of that clip right above the original clip. And now this top clip is the one that we're going to be modifying. But before we modify it, we need to make sure that this actual video clip is tracked to that ball, which we've tracked down on the bottom clip. So I'm gonna come up to my viewer. I'm gonna tap on this transform modifier, and that's going to bring up this transform and tracker right here in the middle. Again, if this doesn't pop up, it could be because your viewer window is too small. So again, if this doesn't pop up, if when you click on this transform modifier, you don't see transform and tracker, it's just because your browser is too big or your viewer is too small. So the easiest way to get around it is just to go and hide the browser. If you want to see your browser still for some reason, you could slide the browser over, just make it a little bit smaller. But I think it's easiest just to tap on this button and hide the browser completely. So click again on that transform modifier just so that transform and tracker pops up. Still make sure that I have my top clip selected. It got unselected somehow there, but make sure it's selected. Transform modifier is on. I'm going to go up here, the little arrow next to tracker, and I'm going to tap on object track, which is the tracker that we just created, that one that's following the ball. Boom. So there we go. Now this whole entire video clip up top is being tracked to the movement of that tracker, right? The whole entire video clip. Now, come over here to your inspector. Your top clip is still selected. On scale X, we want to get the scale of this video back to just normal. We want it to be 100%. So since we've scaled it down on the X to negative 0.1%, we need to turn negative 0.1 into 100. The way to do that is to multiply by negative 100,000%, okay? So on scale X, I'm gonna click in there, I'm gonna type negative 100,000. Boom. All right. So that just took negative 0.1 and multiplied it by negative 100,000. And a negative times a negative is a positive, and we're back at 100. All right. That's the math on that. The scale Y, we just want to keep at negative 100% because negative 100% times negative 100% equals 1 or 100%, right? Negative times a negative equals a positive. That's why we're leaving that there. All right. So now when I scrub through this, I'm going to turn the transform modifier off so I can scrub. When I scrub through it, as you can see, the ball is staying right in the same spot, but only vertically in the frame, okay? What I want to do is I want to move that ball right onto that horizon line. So top clip is selected. I'm going to come over here to the Y, and I'm just going to pull that. It's actually inverted now because we're dealing with negatives, but I'm going to pull the ball right to the middle of the horizon line. And as you can see, it's just staying right there on the horizon line, okay? Now, the last thing that you're going to need to do, and this is the thing that I just figured out, is because of the way that Final Cut Pro calculates percentages, I think they use something called like sub-pixel, what is it called? They use floating point calculations and sub-pixel accuracy for tracking, all right? But because we're dividing by 0.1 and we're multiplying by 100,000, there's just these potential little rounding errors that are happening throughout those calculations that Final Cut's trying to do for us. So even though the math is 100% accurate, what this ends up doing is creates a 3.84 pixel shift on the frame. And that's because the image is 3,840 pixels wide. So it's actually, I can't see it. I can't tell that that is happening right now. But if I were to put a bright green generator underneath this, that makes it a little bit easier for me to see like what's going on behind there. I'll hide the browser again. So you can see like at some point it's fine, but because of how Final Cut calculates this, you can see there's just this little tiny, it's like barely visible because we use 0.1 instead of 1, which I used in the last video. But there is black space behind the clip right now as it's moving just slightly to the left and the right throughout this entire thing. So you can see it pop up more as I go through. It pops up on both sides depending on where the ball is in the frame. So in order to correct for that, I'm just going to make a compound clip with these two clips, the one we used to track and then the one that is now tracked. Select them both, right click on them, hit new compound clip, and then all I need to do is scale that up to 100.2. It actually worked when I tried it with 100.1, but just to give myself like a little bit more margin for error, I'm gonna scale it up to 100.2. That's only cutting off like 6 pixels max on each side, which is very, very tiny, but it's just enough to cover up that blank space that is beside it. Let me tell you about Squarespace and then I'll explain why this works. Squarespace has got some awesome new stuff going on. First is design intelligence. It's 2 decades of industry-leading design experience combined with AI to help you craft a beautiful, more personalized website quickly and easily. Second is Squarespace Payments. You can manage all of your payments right in Squarespace and give your customers more ways to pay with all the regular methods plus ACH direct deposit, Klarna, Afterpay, Apple Pay, and ClearPay. And lastly, right along with that, Squarespace invoicing. You can send estimates, proposals, contracts, and invoices right through your Squarespace site. Makes it super easy for your customers and for you as a business owner. If you want to try it out, go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/CodyWarner to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Before I get into the explanation, you're probably asking like, well, Cody, there's still blank space above the top and the bottom of, the frame as this ball's staying center frame. And that is a great question. If you don't like the way that that looks, what you can do is just continue to scale up the entire clip, which is something that I've done in all of these videos. So we're just doing it now as opposed to previously. In order to do that, go to the place where there's the biggest bar right there. That's probably the highest I got with the ball. And then come over here to scale and bring that up to about half of the distance. I can slide this whole clip then up. So then I'm gonna keep on going. Looks like there's still some bars. So I should slide it up a little bit further. Then I gotta make sure it doesn't pop out of the bottom. Yep, it does still. So then where it pops out of the bottom, I'm gonna scale half that distance, slide it back down. All right. Oh, popping out of the top. Having that bright green below the clip actually makes this much easier. Then you can go ahead and delete that fluorescent green that you put down at the bottom. All right, I'm gonna go and turn off the horizon now. Okay, so why does this work? It works because we're trying to cancel out motion that is happening within the frame, right? And that motion that we're trying to cancel out is a subject, in this case, the ball. So when we tell Final Cut Pro to track that ball, the way that we can cancel out its motion is to move the frame, the entire video, in the complete opposite direction that the ball is moving within the video. So when the ball is up here, we just need to just take this entire video clip and move it so it's back down here. When the ball is down here, we need to take the entire video clip and move it so it's back up here. Because Final Cut knows where the ball is all the time, if we just turn that upside down and then track the video clip itself to that upside down version of the ball moving around in space, once we scaled the video back up to fill the entire screen, it just ends up looking like the ball is staying in the same place in space. But because we used -0.1 for the X, we took all of that tracking along the X axis and we just squished it to basically 1 pixel, really 3 pixels, but we squished it to 1 pixel. So now the tracker only knows to tell the video frame to only move up and down. it's not moving left and right because it doesn't have that information anymore since we squished it. And I can actually show this to you pretty well if I just scrub through the playhead here. So I'm gonna go back into the compound clip just so that you can see it. And I'll put the view down to percentage down to 25. I'm gonna turn on the transform modifier because it brings up this awesome grid. And so when I go through this, you're able to see that the video frame itself is just moving up and down with that tracker that we've created. See that video frame? It's just popping up and down, just popping up and down. And it's popping up and down in the exact zero cancellation of where that ball is because we tracked where the ball is and then turned it upside down. So now anytime the ball goes up, the video frame goes down. Anytime the ball goes down, the video frame goes up. MA70RK, yes, you can do it for the y-axis. This is how you do it. I hope that was helpful. Thank you for encouraging me to make this video because it helped me to understand that using 0.1% and then multiplying by 100,000 is even more precise, even more accurate than using 1% and multiplying by 10,000, which is what I did in the last video. I love figuring out new stuff like that. If you have a question, if you want to do something in Final Cut that you can't do, I would love to try to figure it out. Drop a comment, let me know. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you in the next one.